So I've got a lot of slides. This was written for a different crowd. This was hardcore homebrew guys over in France. Here we go. Yep. I'm Alice. Hello. I've had the intro already there. There's where you can find me. Wallmaster with 2 R's in most places. So I've been in the games industry for over 10 years now. Worked on a whole bunch of mobile games, balloons, and then during the pandemic quit to start low-tech games, making games for old systems and weird stuff. Yeah, I've been doing the rounds, a whole bunch of these conventions and stuff. You always meet really cool people. You never know who you're going to meet at these things. First, Flea. Flea started off as a demo back in 2013, just as I was finishing university. This was Henry in the first place. He was called Henry because he had a bow tie and it looked a bit like a H on his chest. And the idea was that the Flea always jumped and you slid the background underneath him. It never went anywhere because I'm not a very good coder. I did release it, but then in 2019, many years later, was playing with Nestmaker, and I just picked up that idea again, and then did a Kickstarter for Flea. This was actually, I'm jumped the gun there. Yeah, this was the first thing I posted on the forums. Like, here's a really bad pixel art, and here's the Flea. It's just funny that he didn't change at all since the actual initial design. And then here's that in action, the constant jumping again, and there's an automatic mover for the boss levels. It's a pacifist game. You don't fight anybody, you just flee. And then here's a dash move from later on as well. I did a whole bunch of sketches. People really love Tapeworm. Yeah, all the puns. That's how I designed these games. So he got his own game later on. This was the first box art sketch I did that did evolve, as you can see later on. There was a thing called Pop-Uptober, where you make a new pop-up every day, and I kind of challenged myself to make a different Flea every day, so that gave me a whole bunch of characters to draw from to put into the game. And then it kind of came back later, if you know where it's going. Then we put the Flea demo out for Bite Off back in 2019. It's a kind of game jam contest. Here's the whole game of Flea in one big scene. There's 80 levels and all the transition levels in between, and then the bosses are on a different slide. So we did kickstart that game back in whenever that was, 2020, right at the pandemic. It went live, and then we got locked down. So it did get extended for a couple of days, but we got funded in 3 days. And yeah, what else? We launched it on the 29th of February because it's a leap year. So it came in 2 flavors. You get the under the skin red and the normal grey, and there was also a special edition that had this kind of polystyrene thing, no, the other way around. They had this cool thing instead of this polystyrene thing in the box, and there's what it kind of looked like in the process. It was an absolute nightmare to make, and they broke the night before they were supposed to ship. It was horrible. This guy called Tui, he kind of just cold called me on Nestmaker forums. I already had someone in mind to do it, but they were a mate and they kept letting me down, kind of. And he was like, I'll do it, and give him a chance. And he turned out to be one of the best in the biz. Everybody uses him now, and he's the best. And then, yeah, here's now Broke Studio have picked it up, and that's where you can buy it if you want to buy from them. It was also on Evercade in Indie Heroes 1, and we got the Pride of Place right in the middle, which was really fun. That was a demo thing as well. That wasn't actually final art. Yeah, look for a way to make you can read this faster than I can. I'm really dyslexic. So I remember when I was at school on the bus, my friend gave me a disc, just said NES ROMs, and it ran on the Dreamcast. And I was like, wait a minute, that's probably an open source project. We can use that. It was up on GitHub, and we modified it. It had a permissive license, so we could use it commercially. And we got my friend from Ninja Kiwi to make it so you could port NES games to Dreamcast. And then we made it open for everyone, so there's been lots of ports in that way since. We did a whole bunch of different... I did run myself on just CDRs in the first place, but then Wave came along later and picked it up and did a proper press release. We also did the same thing for Steam, so you can bring your NES game to Steam using, again, an open source emulator. I don't know why he's there. Tui introduced me to this guy because he was working on Wolf Clan with him and Ronio's Tale. And then this guy's just amazing. I was thinking of ideas for the Playdate, and Tapeworm, that character needed his own game. And I thought the crank was really cool because you could wind the character back into the cassette tape. Yeah, so I did some concepts for that, sent this over to Valdir, and then within a night we had like this demo up and running, and it was already enough to show that it's fun. So we were like, yeah, let's commit to this as our next game. So then I designed a whole bunch of levels. Like each of them had completely different mechanics. The early prototype was rhythm synced, because some people might think it's Tapeworm Disco Puzzle, like it should be. We tried it, and it just was not fun. I'm just not a fan of these kind of rhythm sync games anyway. I think they just get in the way. So this was, again, it came to Kickstarter, and we got like £16,000, and thank you. Hey. And then there's some screenshots again. Again, you can buy it from Broke Studio. That came in more flavors this time. The special edition this time round was a see-through cart with the cassette tape with the soundtrack on the inside, and this other diorama that again broke in the post. I've learned from my mistakes. I'm not going to do that again. Then another Evercade deal with these guys. This was really cool. That was the first time I've seen my game in an actual physical store, even though it wasn't available at the store. You had to order it and it gets sent to your house. But we also got some merch, and yes, they are juggleable, just in case you wondered. We did hit the stretch goals for that, so we got a 2-player mode, and we got a Playdate port. We didn't reach the Switch port, but did get to Switch in the end. But yeah, the Playdate port was really good, and we ended up being like one of the first launch titles on their catalog system. Porting NES games to Playdate is really cool because it's the same vertical resolution, so you can basically redraw all the sprites like one for one without having to rely on dither patterns, and you can make it look exactly how you want. And this was the tile set side by side for the two. Yeah, it was a catalog launch. I'm getting ahead of myself. So there was 13. How long have I got left? And then we also did like a community bundle out on Itch. These are always really good when doing these kind of homebrew stuff, because it means it's combined marketing efforts of a lot of small people. And then whenever you make a sale, your friends make a sale as well. So it's really good. And if you're the first one, you always get like a lot more PR as well, which is nice. Then Antstream, they picked up the game pretty early on as well. And so there was 1 month we were forced most played on the platform. And I think 2 of those games have now been removed. So if they do that again, we might even be second. So that's cool. And they do a good job. We're on most of their banners and stuff these days. So it's really, really good. Yeah, like that. Right next to Pac-Man. Got it on Switch as a 2-pack with Parasite Pack, Flea and Tapeworm, and we made a Flea spin-off game. It's really fun. It's free on mobile. We've made no money from it. Just go play it and press watch ad a couple times, and we might make a couple pennies. Did branch into other stuff. We've got merch. We got kind of comics. We did an ebook. Again, like going around the places. That was so many nice people. John Riggs, yeah, he's there. The Lightbook's also there. John Riggs did a video about the Lightbook when I was over at the Midwest Gaming Classic. It's more than that. I think it's like 14 million views. It was crazy. So people started like talking to me about that, and I've been kind of focusing on that as my main thing for the next bit. It did get some other stuff. Yeah, it's here. You can play it. And we've added a few more modes since John posted about it. And then John asked, "Can we make a game?" I was like, "Oh, like Choo Choo Rocket." Like, yeah, I'm in. Because Choo Choo Rocket was the game that kind of introduced me to puzzle games in the first place. So again, I sent a design doc over to Valdir. This is kind of it. I'd use like color coordination. If it's green, we're definitely doing it. If it's red, I've thought about it and removed it. If it's orange, I'll think about it later. And he was having a hard time thinking how you would move that over to NES. So I made this quick animation in Photoshop, and that's kind of the way I communicate with him. He's also Brazilian, so there's the time difference and the language barrier. So yeah, creating visual stuff is always really, really helpful. So we made these things. These more complicated sprites, but I decided against them in the end, just because on the NES it was also on Evercade. It was the game of the month. I can't remember what it was. It was around Christmas last year. It's on Playdate catalog as well. And Flea 2, I'd say, I've been going around other places. People really seem to love Flea, and everybody was asking for more of it. And then I just finished Choo Choo Mimic and was just coming up on some funding for the pop-up book at the end of last year. I was like, I could either finish one of my other games or start another one entirely. And I thought this one was one that I could kind of guarantee that there's going to be some money to help me fund the other projects at the end of the year when the funding runs out again. So that's why we're doing that. So that is launching on the 29th, again, the February 29th of the leap year. So it's been 4 years since the first Kickstarter. And thanks for listening. I don't know where that QR code goes, but you can check it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alistair Lowe. So if you want to go fund the game, as he said, the Kickstarter starts on the 29th of this month.